Hey guys, James coming at you from Kartz-N-Fartz. So today we're going to put in an eco battery, 60 amp hour, 51 volt in a 2018 Yamaha. So the 60 amp hour, at the time of this filming, it is early August 2024. So I know this content stays online a long time, but the 60 amp hour is Eco's answer to trying to keep the lithium price as close to lead acid as they can. So obviously, if you're watching this, you're either thinking about buying one or have already bought one. If you're thinking about buying one, feel free to contact me. I am an eco battery dealer. And I also do a lot with Plum Quick Motors and some other miscellaneous stuff. But this video is going to be about the install in this Yamaha. So I drove it beforehand, and the cart's performing pretty well, but these Trojans are 5 years old. They're just tired. He's getting about 20 miles an hour right now. I'm real curious to see what kind of performance I get with the eco battery. But this 60 amp hour is their latest, greatest stuff. Like I said, as of filming, it is a premium lithium pack. I think they call it a C3 rating. So anyway, it just withstands a lot more discharge for the smaller package. So he does not drive a whole lot. So 60 amp hours should get him between 20 and 30 miles between charges. These lithium batteries, they do charge up pretty quick also. So anyway, so rainy day here in South Carolina. So let's jump on it. So I'm gonna start by taking a photo of where all the wires are on the battery. And I noticed on this one that I've got some additional wires. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run some voltage checks to these terminals and mark what these wires go to these terminals and go from there. Like I've got a wire with a fuse right here. This customer does have headlights, and he also has a radio. So some of this may be going to a radio. I may even probably find a voltage reducer in here. So if you're doing this for yourself, take your cell phone out and take a picture. And if you have any questions about where something goes, then you'll know. So anyway, I see a fuse right there. I think that's a headlight wire. But anyway, I'm gonna figure all that out. All right, guys, I want to show you something very cleverly what Eco did. So these are all the components you will get with your bundle kit. But believe it or not, the charger, the battery itself, the voltage reducer, the wiring harness, and the LCD gauge that'll go up front, they're all the same in every application. So what they do to change things up is their charging port adapter and their brackets, mounting brackets. So between those two parts, that's what makes this kit a Yamaha kit and not an E-Z-GO or club car. So whichever cart you're having, they're gonna have the same battery, the same charger, the same voltage reducer, and also the LCD gauge. So what this is gonna help is if you need a part, there's a lot higher chance they're gonna have it in inventory, and also they're going to know the ins and outs of these very, very well. They've gone through a lot of effort to make sure that these mounting brackets, which, you know, they're different for a Yamaha than they are a club car or an E-Z-GO, and also the charging port, but they make it where they're just so simple to install. So as we jump in this video, you're going to see it, but that's what you're going to get all boxed up with your bundle. All right, guys, so another thing I did before I start taking the batteries out, obviously I told you to take a picture of everything, but I've got some accessory wires. And so as I notice those two wires together, I notice there's a black here. This battery is linked over to this battery, and that's where the other positive with the fuse goes on. So I measured the voltage there, and that was 16 volts. So two 8-volt batteries equals 16 volts. So I just took a piece of tape and marked it. Same thing over here. They've got another accessory with 16 volts. And a lot of these radios and also a lot of the headlights and LED lights, 16 volts is fine. I mean, a lot of us builders do that. So I'll end up finding out which one of these is headlights and which one is the radio. Then I looked around at all my other terminals. Really didn't see anything else. I did see this thick red wire and thick black wire, which goes to your main negative and your main positive. But I know that that goes to my charging port, which is going to get taken out. Also, I noticed this other wire. Now that is 48 volts, you know, all 6 batteries. So there's probably a voltage reducer So I'm gonna find out where that is when I take all the batteries out. But now the next step is to go ahead and put your cart in tow. Make sure you do any kind of safety precautions. If you're gonna be underneath it with your eyes, wear some safety glasses. But all this stuff you should be able to do from up top. But I'm gonna take all these batteries out, including these battery hold downs, and just get rid of all that at all. Complete. Guys, got all the batteries out. Got my wires that I labeled. I got them kind of laid aside. Come to find out, I got underneath this cart, it's got underglow lights. So that's probably where some of those accessories are going to. I did notice this. This is my positive cable. Now, it was wrapped up in this loom. It looks like a test port or some type. So I took it out of that loom. It will stretch over to my positive on my battery, but my negative cable will not. So I'm gonna go behind this controller. I'm gonna take the negative cable loose and see if, instead of coming out of the driver's side, if I come along the passenger side, if it'll reach my eco battery. So the eco battery is gonna sit in with the terminals going towards the rear of the cart. And if I look at that, the way these terminals are gonna sit, the negative is gonna be on the left, the positive is gonna be on the right. So let's get back over here. So I do feel like my positive cable will stretch once I took it loose from that loom. There's plenty of room, it's well insulated. But this negative, there ain't no way it's gonna stretch. So let me try it on this side, see if I can come through here. And so what I'm gonna do is crawl underneath the cart and take it loose from the other side. All right, guys, so I crawled underneath there. It's hard for me to hold the camera and show you everything, but right behind this panel is your solenoid. So this positive wire wraps around and connects to the solenoid, kind of on the left side of this blue stripe. The negative cable hooks up about right here on the controller. So I'm definitely gonna have to make me a longer cable. There it is when I took it off. But anyway, let's go ahead and I think what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna put my battery tray in here, loosely mount my battery. Good thing about those 60 amp hours, they're not that heavy, they're not that big. And then let's do a dry fit and see how long I need to make that. All right, guys, so your brackets for your battery tray are gonna sit in like this. I'm gonna shift mine over to the passenger side, and I'm using the existing bolt holes. There were 3 of them that had the battery hold downs, which look like this. So if you remember taking those loose, that's the holes that I'm gonna use. The kit came with the nuts to hold them down, so I'm gonna use 4 of those to hold those down. And the way I'm positioning these, if you look at these brackets, you can see it's got like a little L shape for strength. One side is open. I'm gonna leave the open to the outside, and the reason for that is when I get ready to put these bolts or another bolt in with a nut underneath it, when the battery's sitting right there, I'll be able to reach under it to hold the nut in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw this down and set the battery on top. Okay guys, I'm underneath the cart. So there's the controller, and right there, you can kind of see that. It's kind of hard on my iPhone. You can see that nut hanging. So there's a very thin black wire, and on top of that was the main negative wire. I did have to get one 25 inches long. The factory one was 19 inches long, and it's going to screw into that slot right there on the controller. Of course, you know, never mess around with these controllers unless it's got absolutely 0 voltage. Everything's out, so I know it's 0 voltage. But I had to take that 12 millimeter bolt out of the controller. That's your main negative. And now, instead of it running, let's see if I get my hand up in here. Instead of it running this way like it was, I'm actually going to curl it down, make sure it doesn't touch any of those other wires, but I'm going to curl it down, come across, and then I'm going to come out, and you can see the battery right there. Let's see, that's the bracket. There's the battery. There you go. So again, I'm trying to do this with my cell phone underneath the golf cart, but I am going to have to replace that negative cable with a longer cable. 25 inches, factory one was 19 in this 2018. All right, guys, back up top again. And that's the cable that I had. It was 25 inches, and it's going to be like almost a perfect fit. So if you want to cut one 26 inches, might give you 1 extra inch to play with, but anywhere close to that. One other thing, so I'm ready to mount on these corners that lines up with my battery tray, and there is a bolt kit that Eco provides, A8004. I guess these are 1/4 inch flange black. So anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and I feel safe now bolting my battery to the tray. No reason to lift it in and out. I can work around it for everything else I need to do with the ends. So we got that secured, and it is a little bit of a bear to get these lock nuts and the also the lock washers down there, but it's not too bad. I think it's the 7/16 on the bottom, which is probably like 11 millimeter, and the top is a 10 millimeter. So next I'm gonna move to the charging port. So we're gonna remove this ring from around the top of it. Let's see if we can get that off. Sorry guys, that took 2 hands, but it's just basically a little rubber, flexible rubber ring. It's got a little gap, and I'm sure it goes around the edge of that. So now it looks like, I don't know, from my eyeball, it looks like a 7 millimeter. But let's, either 7 or 8, let's take those 3 prongs off. And on the back side of it, all that's gonna come with it. So that's what went to your main positive and negative, which would be 48 volts for the charger. So let's go ahead and take that. All right guys, so those were 8 millimeter bolts. So I'm gonna take the replacement Eco, and if you look at this, that is a metal plate. So I'm gonna use the existing hardware. It does come with new hardware, but I'm gonna use the existing hardware since that's a metal plate, and go ahead and secure the Eco charging port, where all you have to do is plug in an extension cord. So let me get that. Guys, that turned out nice. So on the back here, I did have to unplug the factory charging port, and there was a gray wire, which I don't think I may need to use this. So I'm gonna make sure I zip tie that out the way. But first thing I'm gonna do is get it running, and then we'll come back whether we needed to do anything with that wire. But I do not think I need that. I think that has something to do with controlling the factory charger, which we're not gonna use. Eco's gonna have its own charger built on. All right, on this model, there's a screw underneath this little tab. Let's see if I can do it with one hand. Looks like it's coming up. There we go. All right, so you can see the 2 tabs underneath there. And it looks like that's not a Torx bit, that looks like a Allen head. So let me get that out. And he did have someone else put a radio in here, so we'll see how that affects anything else. Pretty simple. I pulled that bolt out. See where it fastened in there? And this whole thing comes up, and I'm just gonna be careful not to scratch the windshield, but I'm gonna get behind there and take that gauge out, and also look at the ignition switch, which is way down there in the bottom. Let's see what those wires are. All right guys, got that off, and ran into a hiccup. You see that round gauge? It's got a square hole. Who in the world puts a square hole for a round gauge? Well, evidently Curtis does, because Curtis is the one who made this. So I've got to come up with a solution to cut a round hole on top of that square hole. Let me put my thinking cap on. All right, a little bonus footage here. Wasn't expecting to run into this problem. So this is the bit that I use for the factory Eco gauge. And this is a 2 3/64 inch hole, or 52 millimeter. This is a cheap one. I got it off Amazon. The only thing I use it for is plastic. So what I did was I took another piece of plastic that I actually cut a speaker hole out of for a club car I was working on. I've got a welding clamp on there. So what I'm gonna do is recenter this hole and try to at least get it started, and try to make this square hole a round hole. So hopefully this works. So I'm not gonna center it there. I'm gonna come down a little bit. All right, man, wish me luck. If you see a good result at the end of this video, you know that it worked out okay. If it doesn't work out, you will never see this footage. So hang on. All right, guys, it worked. You can see where I got off the center. So, but let's face it, if you were watching the video this far, you know I wouldn't want to publish something I screwed up on, were you? So anyway, we'll get that cleaned up a little bit. And let's see here, where's my gauge? There it is, rolled underneath there. Sorry guys, I'm doing this with one hand. If you watch my channel, you know I am doing all this stuff by myself. So there you go, I'm gonna utilize that square hole for the Eco battery. So now next step, I'm gonna have to run the cable wiring from here down, and at the same time, I'm gonna find out from this ignition switch Might as well pull that out. Find out which wire on that is energized hot when you cut the key on. So at this point, I'm gonna take this little U-bracket. It's got two 7mm nuts in there, and I'm going to secure this gauge so it does not go loose. And I'm gonna try to look at these lines and try to get it as even as I can. As you can see, there's plenty of room back here. There's some underglow lights on this cart and some of the radio wiring, which is right there in the cup holder. So I'm gonna feed it from this angle back once I go underneath the cart and I come up, let's see here, beside the battery, and there is a DIN plug right there. I'll secure that cable to make sure it's not dragging, get it tight. Anything extra, I'm gonna coil up just like the previous installer that installed the lights and keep it stored underneath here and not have as little wires in the battery compartment as possible so it just looks neat. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off, and I'm gonna go ahead and start feeding this wire from the DIN plug down. So came under the floorboard right beside some other wiring harnesses, came up this way, and this is the little DIN plug I was telling you about. So they will use that connector to energize your battery meter. Real simple, it just plugs in and screws on. And later during the install, you've got two of these, they call them CAN connectors, and I forget what it's for, Communication Access Network or something like that. Anyway, CAN connectors. You can use either one of these, has to plug into your charger so your charger can communicate with the BMS, which is underneath this casing here. So anyway, so I'm just gonna lightly, snugly put that DIN connector, and I'll probably end up zip tying them right here to these little extra mounting holes. But we'll get to that during wire management. So at this point, I got enough cable run, and so I'm gonna start snugging it up and coil up what's left over under the cup holders. And then I'll take these, let's see, what is that? That's an 8-pin and a 4-pin, and that connects into the back of the gauge. And the lighting is horrible right there. When I do plug these in, these are really small. I don't know how durable they are, so I'm actually going to push them to kind of help that locking mechanism work and make sure both of these are locked in properly behind the gauge. All right, next I'm going to install the Eco Battery voltage reducer. Very nice voltage reducer. So this thing here is rated at, let's see here, output is 25 amps. So I've never installed anything heavier than 25 amps where it's going to work. So I know this customer has underglow lights, he has a radio, he's got his regular headlights. That's not going to pull 25 amps. So this Eco voltage reducer that comes with your bundle kit also comes with a harness. One of these wires is this orange wire, and it needs to feed underneath the golf cart, come up here, tie into your ignition switch. This will be on the switched side of your ignition switch. When I say switched side, so you've got two wires going to your ignition switch. Actually, let's look and see what color they are. Let me zoom out on the camera here. Looks like a little push tab. Okay, there we are right there. So it is a red and white and a black. So I'm gonna find out which, red and gold, I think it's red and white. I'm gonna find out which one of these is switched wire, which means it's gonna have pack voltage on one side, and when you cut the key on, it connects the two wires together. So I wanna hook it on the one that has, that is dead when the key is off, and then when you cut the key on, it energizes it. That trigger wire, that orange wire, will go under here, and it will activate the voltage reducer. So there's a little connector that it will go into, and you can see the orange wire right there in the middle. So really cool. When you get the key off, anything that's hooked to the voltage reducer will die. So the radio won't be left on and drain your battery down. Any underglow lights, you can see he's got switches under here. None of that stuff that I'm gonna wire to that voltage reducer can kill this battery. I decided on this application, and I know it's dark, but I'm gonna go ahead and install my voltage reducer here and my charger here. So that's going to tie up the passenger side of the under the battery compartment. You got your 60 amp hour eco battery, and you've got all this empty space. So he can put down a cooler or, you know, whatever he wants to keep underneath there, he'll be able to keep it underneath there. Now, these extra wires that I still need to wire to my wiring harness, we're going to get to that. But when I get finished with it, you're going to see after wire management, this is going to be very, very clean. So I am going to go ahead and secure my charger and my voltage reducer. And then I'm going to take this side of the harness and I'm going to connect it into here. Now, this side of the harness from Eco, it also has two fuses. It has an in fuse and an out fuse. So you are fused. So that's a good safety device right there. And let's face it, once I zip tie it to those little tabs on the battery right there, and there's another one over here. There you go, if you can see it. Once I zip tie that out, I'll make sure the fuses are accessible, and hopefully he doesn't have a problem, but if he does, he'll be able to change it pretty quickly. Hey guys, I want to show you a little pro tip here that I learned on YouTube. So this is I got these cheap off Amazon. I guess I'm an Amazon junkie. But this is a sewing needle, or I guess sewing thread cutter. So there's a little razor blade right there underneath that red dot. So what I'm going to do is I am going to I'm going to use this to cut that tape so I can pull the wire out of this harness. Now, depending on what you're going to use it for, like I mentioned earlier, Eco does a real good job to make one part fit multiple carts, but I don't need all this extra slack. So I'm going to cut this protective coating off, and I'm going to get the wires that go to the battery. I'm going to shorten them up, and the wires which will go to my 12-volt accessories, which is the thick red and the thick black. I'm going to have enough extra somewhere around in here to where I can splice in these 12-volt accessories. So anyway, but yeah, that little trick there works really good. If you've ever tried to peel the tape off this, because Eco does a good job securing this, but I just don't need that much protection. So I'm going to trim that down and kind of neaten up my install. All right, so now I'm going to mount the charger and the voltage reducer. Now, the voltage reducer does not come with any screws, but you're going to need 3 screws to do that. And just some little short Phillips heads are fine. And if you look, I don't know if I can zoom in, you can see where the wires come out. Well, that is covering one of the flanges. So that's why you can only put 3 in there, even though it's got 4 holes. You can't get a screwdriver underneath that mounting point. So I'll put 1 there and 2, 3 right there. Now on the charger, you can get to all 4 flanges, and let's zoom this out. It comes with these little 5/16 self-tapping. See if I can spin that around with one hand. There you go, self-tapping screws. These aren't crazy strong for steel, so if you're drilling it into steel, do a pilot hole first. This little bit I got is an apex bit, and it looks kind of crazy. It looks rounded. This thing will not let go. So when I put one of these 5/16 in there, I mean, that joker's almost like a magnet. It's very good. So I use that, and I'm going to go ahead and secure my charger and my voltage reducer down with a couple 3 Phillips head screws. All right, guys, we got that mounted in there. One thing I want to tell you about, so I was able to get these 2 in that tab and this one in the tab. But this tab was actually a trough, kind of like that right there. So anyway, the screw wasn't long enough to go through it. So I just scooted it over and drilled right through that. It's fine. It's self-tapped right through there. This charger is solid as it can be. I got my Phillips head screws on my voltage reducer. So now I want to talk to you about these wires coming out. So this wire right here, don't let it alarm you. That's for servicing the charger. That's going to be for OEM hookup only, so that is not to be used. This wire right here that comes out, if I can pull it up here. So this is one of those, the can wire that I talked about earlier. So this is going to plug to one, and it doesn't matter which one of these wires that came off of this 90-degree DIN plug. So it's about 6 inches down. So we'll plug that up. then I'm going to zip tie, really do some neat wire management. The other wire that's coming out, let's see. So that goes to my battery, or your battery. So obviously, red is going to be positive, black's going to be negative. So I'm going to have these two wires going to your battery. So you got the, let's just say one for each post. Then you're going to have one for each post for your main controller wires, which there's my positive and the negative slip down. So you got that one. And then the third wire is going to be your voltage reducer. So what I did was, I talked to you about it earlier, so I separated that little harness with my little sewing kit. I took these two wires, I put new ring terminals, those are 5/16 ring terminals, and I shortened it up by about that much. So there's the other one on the ground. So that's just excess wire that I did not need. So I shortened that up. I'll be able to tuck this down, have just enough wire, make a neat install. So let me zoom out a little bit. Once I get the 3 wires on each post of the battery, then I can put my cap on there. Those are 13mm studs that go through there. And the way you want to mount these, the thickest wires against the battery, and then go to the thinnest. So in this case, and in your case should be the same, you're going to do the wire that goes to your controller, your positive and negative. The second one is going to be this red and black one that comes off of your charger, okay? And then the last one are going to be these thin wires that come off of your voltage reducer. So once you get that snugged up, and all this time, I've got the battery off. There's a little indentation on-off button. I'm leaving it off. So I'm not going to do anything until I energize the battery, until I get all this mess back together. So now the next thing that I'm going to do, once I do this, and I'm going to do this off the camera. You don't need to watch me do this. So this wiring harness that has my red and black output, I need to hook up the headlight system. I need to hook up the radio that this customer has on there. All that I'm gonna put on 12.5 volts. Now, if you remember earlier, it was actually on 16 volts, which is 2 batteries, but it's gonna be on 12.5 volts. It's actually gonna give longer life to the radio and the headlights. It's gonna be just as loud, just as bright, and we're gonna roll on from there. So let me get that stuff done, and then I'll show you what that looks like. All right, guys, so I got my 12-volt accessories hooked up. As you can see, it's very, very clean on this side, especially when I decided to mount my voltage reducer and my charger over there on the passenger side. So that turned out really, really nice. I went ahead and put my dash back together. You don't need to watch me do that. You can see I've got it charging, so come up with about 59%. If you look at the bottom, 11.4, 11.3, that's what the charger is putting out. So it's a 15 amp charger. So even though it's got 54 volts, it's only 59% charged. So we've got that going on. Actually, I can cut that off. Got my extension cord. And let me tell you guys another thing too. I've run across 2 different customers. They'll buy these extension cords that have the funky lights in there, and they'll end up melting. So get you a good, at least a 15 amp extension cord, if not heavier. But don't play with those funky ones with the lights. You may end up having problems. So anyway, I need to get the seat on this thing, and in the morning I'll actually, because it's late tonight when I finish this filming, but in the morning I'm going to take it on the road for a road test, and let's see what kind of speeds we get. Hey guys, next morning I let it charge overnight, 100%. So a little foggy morning, but we're gonna take a range drive and see how. All right, I got my little ride or die over here, so we're gonna take a little ride, and I'm gonna plug in my GPS and see how many miles I can get out of this thing. Hey guys, I've been driving, doing this range test, and this cart's pretty quick, so it's kind of surprised me. I don't do a whole lot of Yamaha stuff, but this AC drive, according to the gauge, is pulling about 217 amps pretty continuously from a dead stop on flat ground, which I understand is about normal for these AC drives. Now, if you have a DC cart, my understanding is they're just going to pull probably 100, 150 amps from a dead stop, even though they may peak out at more than that. But so anyway, so on a DC cart, it's probably not going to pull the amps this one's pulled. So I've been about 17 miles. I'm down to like 6%. So I'm gonna keep on driving it, and I'm gonna take this thing down to 1% and see what kind of range I can get. And this has been extreme testing conditions. When I say extreme, I've been wide open the whole time. So I wish I had 8 hours to do a range test, but I don't. So I've got other work that I need to be getting done. So anyway, when it got down to that low percentage, it actually gave me a warning on the meter that said charge your battery. So I know I'm running it pretty low. So I reached out to the guys at Eco, and I said, am I going to hurt this battery running it this low? They said absolutely not. So anyway, let me continue on with this range test and see how far I can go before it absolutely stops. All right, guys, I'm back at the shop. So my range test, and like I said, I did take it under extreme conditions. I was pretty much wide open the whole time. So I ended up getting 20.7, and it's down to 1%. The cart is still pulling, but to be honest with you, I didn't want to push it home. So anyway, so for this 60 amp hour, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I've got some other service carts to pick up. I'm gonna log down what time I plug the charger up, and I'll let you know how long it took to get a full charge from 1%. Most of you guys are not going to take it that low, and if you're buying this 60 amp hour battery, obviously you want to save the money. It is definitely a lot cheaper, and you're probably just not a very long range golf cart user. So that's exactly what this customer, we talked to him about all the pros and cons. The pro is less money. The cons is you're going to get a little less range than some of the bigger, like the 105 amp hour battery. But anyway, everything worked out very well. I know he's going to be pleased, and I'm actually keeping this cart an extra day to do all these range tests for you guys and charging time. So hopefully this helps out. But anyway, I'll mention it again towards the end of the video. But remember, if you're interested in an Eco battery, please let me know. Contact me. My email, phone number, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm happy to talk to you. And so anyway, so there it is right there, 2018. This one happens to be an AC drive, Yamaha. So let's go ahead and record some time and plug this charger up and see how long it takes to charge. Hey guys, at the time of the filming, I was unable to find the correct wire behind the key switch for the voltage reducer to cut on and off. So what you can do is you can wire the orange wire to the voltage reducer straight to your positive battery pack. That way the voltage reducer is on when the battery's on. I've got the harness, you know, just routed neatly alongside there. It will work just fine. I've already tested out the underglow lights and the stereo that this customer has. So once I find out a solution to this with this AC drive cart, evidently it's different from a DC drive cart, I will post it in the comments below, so you can read in the comments below to get an update on that. All right guys, so after an hour and a half of charging, you see it's up to 14.2 amps is the output of the charger. It's up to 40%. So remember, it was at 1%. So hour and a half, it got 40%. So I would say if you allow yourself a good 5 hours from a dead, you know, from a completely dead battery, that's going to give you plenty of time. And it may even charge quicker as it tops off. But unfortunately, I've got some other work that I've got to do. So what I'm gonna do is, I've already talked to my customer. I'm gonna drop it off to him, and he's gonna top it off before he uses it this evening. So it shouldn't take him very long. But anyway, thanks again for tuning in to one of my videos. Again, I'm James at Kartz-N-Fartz. Would love to try to help you with your Eco battery purchase. So just hit me up, either email or my telephone number. I'll put that right there on the screen when I edit this video. And like I said, love to be your dealer. So Eco battery, 60 amp hour. I'm very impressed with the power that it's putting out. So I was very shocked that this lifted cart, and by the way, I'm not sure if I explained everything, but this is a 6-inch lift, 23-inch tall tires, factory AC motor, factory controller, and I put it through a pretty hard test. So I think for running it as hard as I did, I think it did awesome. So anyway, if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out, and also tune into and subscribe to my channel. A lot of helpful hints. I do more club cars than anything, but cool thing about these eco batteries, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put one in. The guys up there in Utah, they really put an awesome kit together. So thanks again. I'll see you next video.